Hi and welcome to another episode of Delaware County Political News. Today we are here with Rachel Amdur, Vice Chair of the Haverford Dems. Rachel has lived in Haverford Township for 20 years and became the Vice Chair in 2015, but has been involved with the local party since 2000 and has been a committee woman since 2004. She has always been involved with the community, with a PTO, a band parent, Haverford Choral Association, and Temple Shalom of Broome Mall. She is married to her husband Brett and has two children, Jeremy and Haley, both Haverford Public School graduates. Rachel, thanks for joining us here today on Delaware County Political News.
Hi Larry, thanks for having me.
We met a few weeks ago and you told me that there's a lot of citizen activity going on in Haverford Township. Tell me about that.
It's true. Since the 2016 election, there's been lots of activity going on. It's been amazing to see. I have been in Haverford for 20 years and, been involved locally in politics. And most people, they don't get involved in local issues. National, even year elections, they're involved. Local elections, not so much. They say, things are okay. And the pouring out that we have seen since November has been huge.
So there has been a pouring out of local activity in Haverford Township. What's been the cause of that?
Well, I think people were surprised by the election results. They kind of got the message of we need to act locally. I mean, Pennsylvania going red was shocking. Haverford Township was very decidedly blue. 65%. People were shocked. And, we have our commissioners, we have a Republican-led Board of Commissioners, we have a Republican-led county, as you know, and people got involved and said, hey, let's make a change locally, and what can I do?
What are they specifically doing?
It's been interesting. There's an organization called HCAN, Haverford Community Action Network. Havertown Community Action Network, I'm not sure. It's just a natural gathering of people, much like the Indivisible and the other things that you have been seeing, but it's local people wanting to get together, and they petitioned our township to sign a climate change to limit greenhouse gases. And they went and they petitioned, they protested the commissioners meeting, and they got their kids to make signs that said save the earth and save the polar bears, and the commissioners were blown away. They voted 9-0. Even our 6 Republican commissioners voted to make Haverford Township to accept climate change and to what they could do to lessen the carbon footprint of Haverford Township.
That's a perfect example of what citizen activity can accomplish. How large is this HCAN group? Do you know?
I think they claim over 1,000 members in a township, which is, I think we have 28,000 voters. 1,000 members, 1,000 people on this, and they have different action groups. They have, they're dealing with the high school right now because they want the high school to have a transsexual policy for trans children. They are working with the Board of Commissioners. They put a resolution before them to support fair districting, which is something that is being pushed statewide to end the gerrymandering of Pennsylvania.
Let's talk about that. Tell me about their efforts with trying to end gerrymandering.
Well, Fair Districts PA is an organization, as you know, that has been going statewide talking about how Pennsylvania is one of the most gerrymandered districts in the nation. There are more Democrats than Republicans in Pennsylvania, and yet I think it's 13-5 is the way the congressional seats swing. They take these disparate, just the 7th Congressional District. It's like a big H. It spans 5 counties, from Lancaster to Berks to Delaware to Montgomery to Chester. It's crazy. So fair districting, Fair Districts PA is a nonpartisan group, and they're saying, like, we don't want to wait and have the Democrats come and gerrymander it back. Let's do something that's fair. Let's do something that keeps communities together, whatever. This is something the Republicans do not support. And HCAN had a petition that's been going around. Lower Merion signed it. A bunch of other communities signed it, commissioners. And they took it to the Haverford Township Board. The board, they always review on one meeting and vote at the next meeting. So they reviewed. There's 9 commissioners, 3 Democrats, 6 Republicans. They reviewed it. They talked about it. When they voted on it, it was interesting. It passed 6-3. So all 3 Democrats supported it. The 2 candidates that we're running against in this odd year election, the 2 Republicans who have active campaigns, also supported it.
They want to stay in office.
Yeah, exactly.
Got you.
Because you know what? They had a packed meeting. Usually they get 10 or 15 people to these commissioner meetings. That was standing room only. The room was full. The room was packed. And then the three Republicans that didn't support it are not up for re-election this year, interestingly.
What effect will these resolutions have? Is this just basically an expression of policy, or does this have any impact of law?
I don't think that it has impact of law. What it has is pressure. Is the Fair Districts PA's point is to get, if local townships put pressure on their state representatives, if we get enough local municipalities to support the redistricting proposals, it's almost like the state is going to have to handle it. The state's going to have to deal with it, because you have all of these communities across the state saying, no, it's not fair. You got to go back to being fair. So I think it matters. I think it does.
Has there ever been this type of activity before 2016?
Yes, in Haverford Township, for issues that are community related, that really sort of cross party lines. And we've seen the pouring out. Our Board of Commissioners is very sensitive to community action, to what their constituents say. And in the past, it's been about the closing of the stadium, which, that elicits a lot of upset. If there's, something that affects the community. Haverford Township's really a great community. It's very close-knit, and we have our issues. And the commissioners are responsive to that.
We've taken the interviews of 2 other residents of Haverford Township, Jack Stolzheimer, the chair of the Democratic Committee, and Cheryl Forsty Grupp, a candidate for commissioner. Each of them raved about how Haverford Township is one of the greatest places to live. How is Haverford different from every other township in the county or Pennsylvania or the country?
It is a great place to live. I mean, I haven't lived in every county in the world or every township in the county. I can tell you Haverford Township is unique in that it is sort of, I tell people I live in the last small town in America. I run into my plumber at the grocery store. The guy that fixes my car lives a few blocks away. I see him when I walk the dog. You know what I mean? Like, it just is, it's just not the way that suburbs work these days anymore, I think. And that's one of the things that makes it interesting. Haverford has a big mix of houses. There's lots of suburbs, and then there are all these big, beautiful mansions, or they're all very much the same. Haverford's a big mix. You can have a street that has 3 twins, a couple of singles, one big new house down the street, And the thing that pulls us all together is we all have little tiny lots and postage stamp backyards, and our kids go to school together. We walk to school. You know your neighbors, and that's really what makes Haverford Township such a great place to live.
You've also had some negative experiences in Haverford. Please share those.
So my husband and I moved in 1996. I answered the door. It was my local commissioner. Hi, how are you? Here's your voter registration forms. Here's your change of address for your registration. It was all paper back then. I said, thank you very much. He said, welcome to the neighborhood. He said, the Republican Party appreciates your vote. And I said, what if you're not a Republican? He said, everyone in Haverford Township is a Republican. And he stomped off my porch. And I was like, honey, did we know we did this? Here we are with our 1-year-old, and I was pregnant again, thinking that was weird. Chalk it up to what it was.
How did you register?
I registered as a Democrat. I'm a Democrat. I've been a Democrat. I wasn't going to change. But about a year later, we had a garbage issue. There was a lot across the street that a business was renting for their trucks. And they parked along the street, which is fine, except that their Wawa cups and their trash was ending up in my front yard. So it occurred to me that what I needed was a public garbage can. If we could have a public garbage can on the corner, half of that trash would end up in a garbage can. They just didn't have a place to put it. So I called my local commissioner, who so happily came and welcomed me to the neighborhood. Left a message, got no answer. A week later, left a message, got no answer. A week later, I was mentioning this to my neighbor, and she said, oh, Rach, they're not going to call you back. You're a Democrat. And I was like, but once you're elected, you work for all your constituents, don't you? She's like, where did you come from? She called our local commissioner as a registered Republican. 2 days later, there was a garbage can on that corner. I was infuriated. I was like, wait, so I have to be a Republican to get anything done? And she, lifelong Delaware County resident, looked at me and said, well, of course, that's how it works. I was just shocked. I was just blown away because I thought we all worked for the good of,
I understand that you have another story for us.
Okay, so, I'm a young mom, 2 little kids, 2 jobs. We're busy, we're doing our thing. The 2000 election comes up. We all pick our sides, I have a Gore Lieberman sign in my yard. As you remember, there was a big month of mess between when the election ended to December, when the Supreme Court made their final call. In that time period, there was somebody took my Gore Lieberman sign, not surprising, but replaced it with the Bush-Cheney sign. I was infuriated. I was like, it was another, I just felt it was another thing of this is what we do here, is we vote Republican, we keep telling you, you keep defying us. I was infuriated. I took the sign, I was literally, it was on my kitchen table, and I was writing a bad word across the sign, and I was going to put it back. And my husband came home, cooler heads prevailed, and he was like, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to throw the sign away. We're going to walk away. And that's when I got involved. That's when I called the Haverford Dems and said, tell me what to do. Because I realized, this was bigger than me. And this is, if I was going to be upset by this, I couldn't just quietly be a Democrat. I was going to get involved. And that's when I started being a poll watcher. That's when I started, delivering literature. And in 2004, that's when Kerry lost, that's when I went, you know what? I can't change Idaho. I can't do anything about Kansas. I can maybe do something in Pennsylvania. I can maybe do something in Delaware County, and I can maybe do something in Haverford Township. And I called the Democrats and said, yes, I'll be committee.
I will share with you an experience when I was running for state representative in 2012, and I would ask you to share this with any candidate running for local office, and I will ask any other chair people who are watching this interview to share this with any other candidates. When I run, the state party gives me doors that they label as friendly doors to knock on. And I saw a list, and when I got to the house, I'd see a sign of my opponent. So I thought that the first time I said, well, I have bad intel. So I skipped naturally. I skipped that door. Would you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I know
so it seemed to me an obvious thing to do, skip the door, until this happened the second time, and maybe a third. I lost count. But when I saw this happen repeatedly, I made the decision to go to the door and at least introduce myself to the enemy. Or
Right.
not the enemy, listen, we're all
But,
neighbors.
yeah, tell
but
your story.
to an opposition, tell my story, at least they'll know that
Right.
there's a face behind someone else that they're not supporting.
Right.
And when I knocked on the door and the woman saw, and I handed my literature, said, "I will vote for you." And I said, "But how about your sign out here?" And she said, "Oh, I didn't put that sign up." When there is a sign on someone's property that is not put up because someone is supporting
Right.
that candidate, that is done without permission. People are so afraid to take a sign down, even if they are supporting the other candidate, that they won't take it down at risk of retaliation and retribution. But chances are, if it's happened to you, possibly it may just have happened to others.
It's true. It goes, a few years later, my husband has a friend that's a judge in Philadelphia. He wanted to run for a statewide office. You have to get so many signatures per county. And he said, "Hey, could you get some signatures?" I said, "Sure." I went to all of these people that I know that feel the same way I do, that I've spoken to politics with, and said, like, "Hey, can you sign my petition?" And they're like, "Oh, Rach, I'm a registered Republican." "No, I can't sign that. I'm a registered Republican." And I'd be like, "You're a registered Republican?" "My dad told me if I wanted to ever get a job in Delaware County, I had to be a Republican. Everyone tells you have to register as a Republican." Maybe because I didn't grow up in Delaware County, like this didn't fear, I didn't have this fear. I do know, 15 years later, of those people, most of them are now Democrats. They're not afraid to change the registration anymore. I personally have, know 15 or 20 people in the last 4 or 6 years who have called me and said, "Rach, how do I change my party?" Now you can do it all online. It's so much easier. They don't need to ask a question. But I was the one that had the forms. I personally, 15 people have called me in the last 4 or 5 years. And that's been happening because
Again, I was a candidate in 2012 for state representative, and I must have knocked on 17,000 doors. Now, they didn't all open their door. A lot of people aren't home. You can't talk to that many people. You don't have that much time. But I did knock on that many doors, and I spoke to a good 20%. And I can tell the people of Aston, Ridley, Nether Providence, South Media, Newtown Square, and Marple that people are registered Republican in those areas because they have to, but they would register Democrat if they felt that it was safe from retribution from the Republican Party.
Well, on the way they register, when we moved into Haverford Township, when I got involved in 2000 and started looking at the numbers, I think that my ward was like 20% D. And Haverford Township, some wards were, more Democratic than others, but it was overall, we were, had between 20 and 30%. Now, here we are in 2017. For about the last year and a half or 2 years, it's been an even mix. We're both about 45-45 with a hunk of independent and green in the middle.
So traditionally, it had been effective, though.
Yeah, it had been. It was a Republican town. It was a Republican Board of Commissioners. There were no Democrats. There was one Democrat. There was, and their votes were squashed. Honestly, the boards that the county that the township appoints. There's the Parks and Rec, the zoning board, there's a commission on the aging. All of those appointees are Republicans. Once I got involved in the Haverford Democrats, we would find candidates for those and say, "Do you want to get on one of these boards?" Democrats were never picked, and because you were a Democrat, the majority of the votes went to of the Republicans, because we don't have a majority on the Township Commission. It was always the Republicans that were picked to appoint. So the zoning board, entirely Republican. The Parks and Rec board was entirely Republican. things are slowly starting to change. And again, because your local commissioners are the ones that are most responsive to their constituents, these people win. You know, they have like, it's a race of 3,000 people. Or, you know, the commissioners win by margins that are teeny. These commissioners of an award, you know, they might win with 28 votes more than the other guy. So this is where you have the most effect. And if you make your biggest vote is for your local guy, or local person. But so many people say, well, I don't know anything about that race, I'm not going to vote. There's no newspaper to cover the races. People don't know what the issues are in their own town. They hear the national issues on the TV and they say, oh, well, I'm going to, you know, I know this. But they ignore what's happening locally. They ignore what's happening in their county. Do you know that Delaware County is one of the only counties in Pennsylvania that doesn't have a health department? Why don't we have a health department? The whole swine flu thing that happened in '09? Nothing. There was no, Montgomery County organized. They had, the county was putting out where to get your vaccination. Delaware County doesn't have that. Why? Delaware County is a Republican town. You know what I mean? They don't believe in the health department. They don't want to spend more money. And it's not about spending more, it's not about more taxes. It's about using your tax dollars appropriately. I honestly think my life is better when your kid is healthy. Do you know what I mean? Our community is better when your kid is healthy.
Most people agree with that.
Yeah. Well, I don't think so, because, you know, if you keep voting for Republicans who refuse to do these public health crises things, then you're saying, you know what, I'm just going to take care of my own. It's not how I believe.
So attitudes are changing, because initially you said when you first came here 20 years ago, it was 20% Democrat. But now it looks like Haverford is 50-50.
We actually have the advantage in registrations by about 1,000, which is shocking to me.
But you mentioned that the commissioners, it was still a 6-3 Republican advantage to Democrats, even though it was a 50-50 registration equality.
Yep.
And how about the courthouse? Isn't there a 100% Republican registration, if not near 100% appointment advantage Republican to Democrat in the courthouse?
There is. In my experience, in these off-year municipal elections, Democrats don't vote. You know, I've talked to them. I want to knock on people's doors, and they say, oh, I don't know anything about this election. Or, you know, it seems safer to not vote at all because I don't have the information. There's no newspaper to read. There's no clear-cut, you know, decisive guide. And they don't vote. Republicans know how to turn out the vote. Republicans know how to get their endorsed candidates to win. Democrats, what we've learned is when Democrats vote, Democrats win. And that can happen in Delaware County.
You were mentioning a very particular type of candidate they always elect with a certain type of power. Be specific.
Republican judges, the Common Pleas Court.
And why is that important?
The Common Pleas Court is the court that that they decide all the issues in Delaware County, whether it's contract law, whether it's, I'm not the legal expert, but
any type of law.
Yeah, so those kind of things, you go before them. If you only have Republican judges, and I think what I heard is there hasn't been a Democratic judge elected to the Common Pleas Court since before the Civil War. They always lean a certain way. They lean towards corporations. They lean towards, they don't lean towards the people. They don't lean towards what's best for the people. They lean towards business. And the deck is stacked against you.
You had an observation about someone who was supporting judges that we had a discussion about. Tell me about what you saw.
So I was standing at the polls, as I always do on all elections, and there was a bunch of people who showed up, unions for Judge blah, 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 who happened to be a Republican judge. And I said, that judge is a Republican. And he said, no, it's great, that's why I'm here. And I said, but they're Republican. They voted against you in these cases and went directly against their interests. And this guy was standing there. He had no clue. He was told to go to this polling place and hand out things and wear his sign. and tell everybody that this judge was great. And when I questioned him about anything, it turned out, you know what, this was a paid work day for him. He was getting paid to stand at the polls from somebody. These municipal elections turn out as always bad. It's like 30%. But for Dems, it's like 20 or 18 or, now here's how it's changed. The primary that happened in May in Haverford Township, the Democrats turned out twice as many people as the Republicans in Haverford Township. We beat them in turnout 2-1.
Do you think it's safe to register your conscience now?
Oh, is it safe to? Absolutely. Is it mandatory? Yes. Yes. Right now, you have to vote your conscience. Any system that tells me I have to vote against science, that I have to vote against equality, that I have to vote against, people for who they love, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm going to vote my conscience. I'm going to vote loud. I'm going to vote proud. I'm going to talk to all my friends and neighbors and say, you know what? You need to vote for the people that believe in the future.
Do you think saying this on camera will empower people?
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, that's the reason to do it, is we need to all start talking. I think that lots of people agree with lots of things that are said, but not everybody has as loud a mouth as me. Not everybody feels as comfortable to, speak their mind in front of everyone. Now is the time. Here we are. Now's the time to make it known that this is not okay with me, to, the things that are happening.
What results can protest, speaking out, and getting involved locally bring?
Local participation can, it's slow. Politics is the long game. All right? So you work with your township. You work on the people who you have the most effect on is your commissioner and your township, and say, I want the science to determine climate change. I want the science to determine, I want fairness and equality in creating my districts. Get rid of the gerrymandering. If you put pressure on your local commissioners, those local people then put pressure on the county government, then the county government then puts pressure on the state government. It's hard to change Harrisburg even, but if we all get together, local activism, you're not alone. It's not you fighting the whole state, it's you and your friends, and those voices are powerful.
Rachel, you have told us about local action that citizens of Haverford Township have taken, this HCAN group and other local groups. What effect has it had? Does it make a difference?
It's making a difference. Pat Meehan changed his mind on healthcare. He voted against the healthcare bill in the House. In December, he was a safe seat. They wouldn't even talk to us about a candidate. Now, he's on the flippable seats. This is 6 months, 7 months later. He's now worried about winning in 2018. Ryan Costello in the 6th Congressional District is exactly the same. This makes a difference. Local action. We protested Pat Meehan, and there's been continual protests for the climate vote and the healthcare vote, and he changed his mind.
Well, Rachel, that's all we have time for today, and I want to thank you again for coming to Delaware County Political News and sharing the efforts in Haverford Township.
Happy to be here.
We have been here with Rachel Amdur of Haverford Township, and I am your host, Larry DeMarco. If you like this video, it is critical that you follow, like, and share with everyone on your contact list. Please tune in for next time. Bye for now.